The day my mother kicked me out of my own bedroom so my pregnant sister could have it, she didn't even look me in the eye, just handed me a trash bag and said I'd figure it out. 6 months later, her house went to auction. I bought it for cash. Now my phone is glowing with 33 missed calls from the same number. Her name is Mallory Hayes. She's the daughter they forgot to invest in. The one who learned early that being independent meant being invisible. Growing up in Colorado Springs, there was always a favorite, her younger sister, the golden child who got the car, the clothes, the attention. Mallory got a bus pass and a pat on the head. But while they poured everything into one child, she quietly built something else. A career, a life, a bank account they never saw coming. Now the house where she was treated like a guest is legally hers. The question isn't whether she'll answer those calls. It's whether her family will ever understand what they lost. To understand what happened in that living room, you need to go back 23 years. Mallory Hayes was born into a house that already had a blueprint for how love was supposed to be distributed. Her younger sister arrived 18 months later, and from that moment, the roles were set. The younger one was fragile, dazzling, the project that required all hands on deck. Mallory was steady, responsible, the one who could wait. And wait she did, for the attention that never came, for the praise that was always redirected, for a seat at a table that only had room for one daughter. The first time she remembers feeling invisible, she was 7 years old. She had fallen off her bike on the driveway, scraped both knees bloody, and limped inside crying. Her mother barely looked up from the phone. "There's a bandage in the bathroom cabinet," she said. "Get it yourself. Your sister has a recital tonight, and I can't have you getting worked up over nothing." Mallory cleaned her own knees, applied the bandages herself, and never mentioned it again. That was the lesson. Pain was something you handled alone. Needs were something you minimized. The only person who would ever show up for you was you. By middle school, the pattern had calcified into something almost architectural. Her sister got horseback lessons, dance classes, cheerleading uniforms, all paid for without a second thought. Mallory got a bus pass and a list of chores. When she brought home straight A's, the report card went on the fridge for one night. When her sister brought home a participation trophy, it earned a framed shelf and a dinner out to celebrate. Her father was the loudest architect of this imbalance. He talked about his younger daughter's future like it was a national treasure. "She's going places," he would say at family gatherings. "She's got that spark." Then his eyes would drift over to Mallory and he'd add, "She's fine. She's always been independent." That word, independent, was the cage they built around her. It meant we don't have to try because she doesn't need us. But what they called independence, she called survival. She learned to cook her own meals because no one else would. She learned to do her own laundry, manage her own schedule, navigate her own school registration forms. She learned the exact tone of voice to use when asking for money so it wouldn't sound like a demand, careful, apologetic, preemptively grateful for whatever crumbs they threw her way. High school brought no relief. Her sister's bedroom became a rotating showroom of new clothes and makeup. Shopping bags appeared every weekend. Packages arrived with her sister's name on them. When Mallory asked for help with college application fees, her father sat her down for a long conversation about budgeting and being realistic. "You're tough," he said. "You don't need this kind of hand-holding." She learned to nod, swallow the sting, and go back to calculating how many hours of babysitting it would take to cover what no one else was going to pay for. She worked weekends at a local grocery store. She tutored younger kids after school. She saved every dollar in a shoebox under her bed because she didn't have a bank account her parents couldn't access. By senior year, she had enough for the application fees, the deposit, the first semester of textbooks. She also had a full-ride scholarship offer to a university 3 hours away. She didn't tell her family about the scholarship until the acceptance letter arrived. She knew if they found out earlier, they'd find a way to claim credit or redirect the resources. When she finally showed her mother the letter, the response was a flat line. "That's nice," her mother said, already scrolling through her phone. "Your sister is thinking about a boutique. We're going to need to focus on that for a while." Mallory packed her own bags. She bought her own bus ticket. She moved into the dorms alone, carrying a second-hand suitcase and a cheap bedding set she'd bought with her own money. No one came to see her off. No one called to ask if she'd arrived safely. She sat on her narrow dorm bed that first night, staring at the ceiling, and made a quiet promise to herself. She would never be this invisible again. College was brutal in ways she hadn't anticipated. The scholarship covered tuition, but nothing else. Rent, food, books, supplies, it all landed on her shoulders. She picked up 3 jobs within the first month, sorting packages in the campus mailroom, cleaning bathrooms in an academic building after hours, and delivering food on a beat-up bike she bought from a resale shop. The mailroom paid the least but was the most consistent. She learned the names on boxes, watched other students receive care packages from their parents, and swallowed the envy like medicine. The cleaning job was lonely, fluorescent lights, industrial cleaner, the quiet hum of a building that didn't care she existed. But the pay was steady, and she could listen to lectures on her phone while she worked. The delivery job was where everything shifted. On a cold Tuesday night, 8 months into her first year, she climbed the stairs to a small office she'd never noticed before. The door was cracked open, light spilling out, and a man in his 30s with tired eyes and a rumpled shirt answered her knock. He looked surprised, like he'd forgotten he'd ordered food at all. "You're working this late?" he asked, signing the receipt. She almost laughed. "This is the early shift," she said before she could stop herself. "I still have homework later." He paused, pen hovering. "How many jobs do you work?" 3, technically. Mailroom, cleaning, and this one, plus full-time classes. He studied her for a moment. No pity, no admiration, just recognition. Like he saw the weight she was carrying and was calculating how heavy it really was. Then he handed her the receipt with a tip that made her eyebrows rise. "What's your major?" he asked. "Communications, for now." "For now," he repeated softly. Then he said, "Take care getting home, okay?" She nodded and left, thinking nothing of it. But that brief exchange stuck with her. It was the first time in years someone had asked what she was building, not just how she planned to survive. His name was Miles Carter. He ran a branding and strategy firm called Carter & West, and he wouldn't be a stranger for long. But before she met him again, something else happened. Something that would set the stage for everything that followed. 2 years later, Mallory was home for a long weekend, a rare visit, the first one she'd made since starting college. She had expected tension, but not an ambush. Her mother sat her down at the kitchen table, the same table where Mallory had done her homework alone for years, and said, "Your sister is pregnant. She needs the guest room." The guest room? That was the room Mallory had slept in since she was 12. The room that held her childhood books, her old yearbooks, the few belongings she hadn't been able to take to school. The only corner of that house that still felt like hers. "I need you to clear out your things by Saturday," her mother continued, sliding a trash bag across the table. "Your sister and her boyfriend are moving in next week. The baby needs a nursery." Mallory stared at the trash bag. White, thin plastic, the kind you use for garbage. That's what her mother handed her to pack her life. "Where am I supposed to put my stuff?" she asked. Her mother shrugged. "Figure it out, you always do." That was the sentence that broke something open. Not with a scream or a slam, but with a quiet, cold clarity that settled into Mallory's bones. She packed her belongings into that trash bag, and a few extra boxes she found in the garage. She loaded them into the back of a borrowed car and drove back to school without saying goodbye. She didn't cry, she didn't call anyone to vent. She just drove, watching the familiar streets of Colorado Springs shrink in her rearview mirror, and made a second promise. This time, she meant it. She was going to buy that house, every single room of it. And she was going to make sure her mother watched her take the keys. She drove back to campus with a trash bag in her trunk and a new kind of fuel in her chest. Not anger, something colder. Clarity. For years, she had played the role they assigned her, the independent one, the one who didn't need anything, the one who made herself small so her sister could take up space. But independence, she realized, was just another word for being abandoned and surviving anyway. And surviving had given her something her sister never earned, the ability to build from nothing. She didn't call home, she didn't post about it, she just started working. That semester, she picked up a fourth job: early mornings at a coffee shop before her first class, lunch shifts at the campus mailroom, evenings delivering food on her bike, late nights cleaning offices. She was getting 4 hours of sleep on good nights, running on caffeine and spite, but every paycheck went into a new account, one her mother didn't know about, one with only her name on it. The first major turning point came 2 weeks later. She was back at Carter and West for her internship, 3 months into a project that had grown beyond entry-level work. Dana West had noticed. She slid a folder across the conference table one afternoon, her sharp eyes fixed on Mallory. "There's a client coming in next week," Dana said. "Mid-sized company, decent budget. They need a full rebrand from scratch. I want you on the pitch team." Mallory blinked. "I'm an intern." "You're the one who caught the inconsistency in their competitor analysis last month," Dana replied. "You're the one who stayed late to rework the messaging framework. You've been doing senior associate work for minimum wage. It's time you got the title to match." The pitch meeting was brutal. 4 hours of questions, pushback, skeptical executives who had been burned by agencies before. Mallory stood at the whiteboard, marker in hand, and walked them through the strategy she'd built. She used the lessons from her childhood reading the room, knowing when to speak and when to listen, understanding that silence could be a weapon. When she finished, the lead client nodded slowly and said, "I want her on the account." That project turned into 3 more, then 5. By the end of her junior year, Carter and West had promoted her to a paid junior strategist position, and Miles started pulling her into partner meetings. "You have a gift," he told her one evening after a particularly tense negotiation. "You see the structure underneath the noise. Most people react to the surface. You see the foundation." She thought about her family, about the quiet architecture of neglect they had built around her, about the way she had learned to study the blueprint of every room she walked into because no one had ever told her she belonged there. That skill, seeing the foundation, was forged in the house she now planned to own. Meanwhile, back in Colorado Springs, her mother's financial situation was quietly deteriorating. Mallory heard about it through oblique channels. A cousin mentioned that the house needed a new roof. An aunt said something about missed mortgage payments. Her sister posted a vague Instagram story about family sticking together during hard times, which was code for asking for money without admitting there was a problem. None of them called Mallory. Why would they? She was the independent one, the one who figured it out on her own. In their minds, she had no stake in their problems. But she was watching. The summer before her senior year, Mallory got the call that changed the timeline. It was a Thursday afternoon. She was in the office, reviewing a client's quarterly report, when her phone buzzed with a number she didn't recognize. She nearly let it go to voicemail, but something made her pick up. "Ms. Hayes, this is Patricia from Summit County Public Records. I'm calling regarding the property at 4427 Cedar Lane in Colorado Springs. A notice of default was filed in April, and the property is scheduled for a foreclosure auction in November. As a relative, we wanted to notify you of the pending sale." Mallory's hand went cold around the phone. She asked the question she already knew the answer to. Who filed the notice? "The lender," the woman said. "The owners are 2 months behind on payments, and the balance is now in default. The auction date is November 15th. If you have any interest in preserving the property, you'll need to act before then." She thanked the woman, hung up, and sat in silence for a long time. The house she had been thrown out of. The house with the trash bag and the guest room and the years of invisibility. It was slipping out of her mother's hands. She could let it go, let the bank take it, let some stranger buy it at auction, walk away and never look back. That would be the cleanest revenge. But clean wasn't what she wanted. She wanted control. She called Dana the next morning and asked for a meeting. "I need to cash out my retirement account," she said, "and I need to borrow against some future salary." Dana leaned back in her chair, studying her. "That's a serious request." "I know. Can I ask why?" Mallory told her. She told her about the room, the trash bag, the bus pass, the Merceds, every small decision that had stacked into a life of being treated like an afterthought. She told her about the notice of default and the auction date, and she told her about the promise she had made on that drive back to campus. "I'm not doing this for revenge," Mallory said. "I'm doing this because they never believed I could. And I want to walk into that house with the keys in my hand and show them exactly what happens when you teach someone to survive without you." Dana was quiet for a full 30 seconds. Then she said, "I'll work out the numbers." The next 6 months became a military operation. Mallory contacted a real estate attorney who specialized in foreclosure auctions. She learned the rules. The house would be sold to the highest bidder on the courthouse steps, cash only, no contingencies. She would need to show proof of funds before she could even raise her hand. She started liquidating everything: the retirement account, the small investment portfolio she had built through Carter and West's employee stock plan, a portion of her savings that she had earmarked for a down payment on her own apartment. She told no one in her family what she was doing, not a single word. Her sister, meanwhile, had moved into the house with her boyfriend and new baby. Mallory saw photos online. The nursery painted a soft pink, the rocking chair in the corner, her mother beaming in the background. The same mother who had handed her a trash bag. The same room where Mallory's childhood furniture had been replaced with a crib. She felt the sting. She let it sit for a moment. Then she opened the spreadsheet that tracked her finances and adjusted the numbers. In October, 1 month before the auction, Mallory made a trip home. Not to the house. She couldn't bring herself to pull into that driveway. She met her Aunt Meredith at the same coffee shop where they had spoken years before. "Your mother doesn't know yet," Meredith said quietly, wrapping her hands around her cup. "They think the bank is going to work something out. They think the baby will buy them sympathy." "They're wrong," Mallory said. Meredith looked at her niece with something between worry and pride. "Are you sure you want to do this?" "I'm sure. It won't fix what they did to you." "I know," she paused, "but it will give me something better than an apology. It will give me the last word." November 15th came cold and gray. Mallory arrived at the county courthouse at 8 in the morning, dressed in a simple black coat, her hair pulled back, no jewelry, no expression. She carried a cashier's check in her bag. The auction was held on the front steps. A small crowd of investors and property flippers huddled against the wind. The auctioneer read the property details in a monotone voice. The opening bid came from a man in a yellow jacket. Mallory raised her hand. The bid climbed. The yellow jacket dropped out at $180,000. Another investor pushed to $195. Mallory raised again, $210. Silence, going once, going twice. Sold to bidder number 7. That was her. The clerk handed her the winning bidder packet. She signed the documents with a steady hand, feeling nothing at first, just paperwork. Then she walked to her car, sat in the driver's seat, and let the reality hit her. The house at 4427 Cedar Lane belonged to her now. Legally, irrevocably. She didn't celebrate. She didn't cry. She picked up her phone, opened the contacts list, and found the number she hadn't called in over a year. Her mother. She didn't dial, not yet. First, she drove to the house. She pulled up to the curb, engine idling, and looked at the place where she had grown up. The lawn was overgrown. The paint was peeling on the porch. A plastic tricycle lay on its side in the driveway. The nursery window faced the street, and she could see the faint glow of a nightlight through the curtains. She stayed there for 10 minutes. Then she started the engine, drove back to her apartment, and waited. The call came 3 days later. Her mother's voice, high and brittle. "Mallory, something terrible has happened. You need to come home." "What's wrong?" Mallory asked, already knowing. "The bank sold the house. We don't understand. We had a payment plan. They auctioned it last week. A stranger bought it. We have 30 days to vacate." Mallory let her talk. She listened to the panic, the confusion, the first hints of desperation. She waited until her mother ran out of words. "I know," Mallory said. There was a pause on the other end of the line. "You know what?" "I know who bought the house." Silence. "Then what are you saying?" Mallory took a breath. She thought about the trash bag, the bus stop, the graduation arena, the room she was never supposed to come back to. I'm saying you should check the paperwork, Mom. The buyer's name. It's the daughter you told to figure it out. The line went dead. She looked at her phone, one missed call, then another, then 3 more. Within an hour, the counter had climbed to 15. Her mother, her father, her sister, all calling all at once, all needing something from the daughter they had trained to need nothing. She didn't answer a single one. But the number kept climbing. 23 missed calls, 28, 33. And sitting in her apartment, with the deed in a folder on her desk, Mallory realized she had been waiting for this moment her entire life. She just hadn't expected it to feel so quiet. The real test was still coming. The eviction, the confrontation, the moment when she would have to look her mother in the eye and decide what kind of person she wanted to be. But that was a story for the next chapter. The 33rd missed call came at 2 in the morning. Mallory had silenced her phone hours ago, but the screen kept lighting up from across the room, casting pale blue pulses against the dark ceiling. She lay awake, watching the numbers climb. 34, 35. She had never seen them try this hard. Not for her birthday, not for her graduation, not for any of the quiet emergencies she had navigated alone. She let it ring. By morning, the voicemail inbox was full. She sat at her kitchen table with a cup of coffee and a spiral notebook, and she listened to every single message in order. Her mother's first call was frantic, almost breathless. "Mallory, call me back. There's been a mistake. Your father is furious. Please just explain." The second call shifted to bargaining. "We can work something out. You don't want to do this. We're family." The third call dropped the pretense entirely. Her father's voice, low and controlled in a way that made her spine stiffen. "You think this is clever. You think you've won something. But you don't know what you're getting into. That house has problems you can't fix. You're going to regret this." The fourth call was from her sister. Flat, hostile, not a trace of the fragility their parents had always insisted she possessed. "Mallory, you need to stop this. The baby needs a home. You're being cruel." She listened to all of them. Then she opened her banking app, confirmed the deed transfer had cleared, and sent a single text to a group chat she had never used before. It contained 3 words: "I'll be there tomorrow. Noon. Bring your things." She drove back to Colorado Springs the next morning. She didn't bring anyone for support. She didn't announce her arrival. She just pulled up to the curb at exactly noon, parked, and walked up the driveway like she owned every square inch of it. The front door opened before she reached the porch. Her mother stood in the doorway, face pale, eyes red. Behind her, Mallory could see boxes stacked in the hallway. The eviction notice was taped to the inside of the screen door. Her sister appeared from the kitchen, baby on her hip, expression tight. Her father stepped out of the living room, arms crossed, jaw set. "So," he said, "the conquering hero returns." Mallory stopped on the welcome mat. She didn't step inside yet. "I'm not a hero," she said quietly. "I'm the new owner, and I'm here to discuss the transition." The next hour was the most honest conversation her family had ever had, which is to say it was brutal. Her mother cried. Her father yelled. Her sister accused her of trying to ruin the baby's life. The baby, oblivious, chewed on a teething ring and stared at Mallory with wide, curious eyes. "You don't understand what this means," her mother sobbed. "We don't have anywhere to go." Mallory looked around the living room. The same couch where she had done homework alone. The same dining table where her sister's achievements were celebrated and hers were mentioned in passing. The same walls that had held her childhood inside them. "I understand exactly what it means," she said. "I spent 18 years in this house learning that I was the backup plan, the one who didn't need anything, the one who could be handed a trash bag and told to figure it out. You taught me that family doesn't owe you a thing, so I stopped expecting anything. I built a life from zero. And now, when you need something from me, you're discovering that I learned the lesson you taught me." Her father stepped forward. His voice was ice. "We gave you everything." Mallory met his gaze. "Name one thing." He opened his mouth, closed it. She waited. "You gave me a bus pass on graduation day while you bought my sister a Mercedes. You gave me a trash bag when you needed my room. You gave me a list of scholarships when I asked for help with tuition. You taught me that I was on my own, and I believed you." Her mother's face crumpled. "That's not how it was." "Then how was it?" Mallory asked. "Tell me. I want to hear the version where I mattered." No one answered. She pulled a folder from her bag and set it on the coffee table. The eviction notice, the purchase documents, a letter from her attorney outlining the terms. They had 30 days to vacate, but she was willing to offer a 90-day lease at market rate if they wanted to stay. The offer was handwritten at the bottom in her own script. "I'm not here to make you homeless," she said. "I'm here to show you that I have the power you never thought I would. What you do with that information is up to you." Her sister scoffed. "You think you're so righteous. You don't know what we've been through." Mallory turned to her. "Then tell me." The silence that followed was different. Her sister's face flickered, anger, defensiveness, something that looked almost like shame. She shifted the baby to her other hip and looked away. Her father broke first. He picked up the folder, flipped through it, and let out a bitter laugh. "You think this is over," he said. "You think the auction is the end of the story." Mallory's stomach tightened. "What are you talking about?" He dropped the folder back onto the table. 3 months before you were born, I took out a second mortgage on this house to start a business. It failed. We've been paying off that debt for 25 years. We're still paying it off." Mallory stared at him. "What that means," he continued, "is that the bank has first claim on this property. They get paid before anyone else does. And if the outstanding debt exceeds the auction price you paid, you're not just buying a house, you're buying a lawsuit." Her mother was crying harder now, but there was something else in her eyes. Not grief, relief, like she had been waiting for this card to be played. Mallory's mind raced. She had done the due diligence. The property search had shown no outstanding liens. But if the debt was structured differently, if it was tied to a personal guarantee rather than recorded against the title. Her father smiled. It was not a kind smile. "You wanted to play the adult game," he said. "Welcome to the big leagues." For a long moment, no one spoke. Mallory stood in the living room of a house she had bought, facing a family she had tried to leave behind, holding a deed that might be worth less than the paper it was printed on. The victory she had felt that morning had evaporated, replaced by the cold realization that her father had been fighting this war much longer than she had. But she had learned something in those years of invisibility. She had learned to keep her face still when everything inside was breaking. She picked up her bag. She pulled out a second folder. "I had a feeling you might try something like this," she said. "So I did a little extra research. Did you know that a second mortgage from 25 years ago has a statute of limitations? That if there's been no active payment or written acknowledgement in 7 years, the debt is considered expired under Colorado law?" Her father's face went slack. Mallory opened the folder. Inside was a letter from a consumer rights attorney she had consulted before the auction, just in case. "I'm not here to fight you," she said. "I'm here to win. And I already did the homework you assumed I wouldn't." She laid the letter on top of the other documents. Then she looked at her mother, her sister, her father, one by one. "The 90-day lease offer stands," she said. "But if you try to come after me legally, I will bury you in paperwork. I can afford it. You can't." She turned and walked out the door. She didn't look back. She didn't need to. Behind her, she heard her sister's voice, high and thin. "What do we do now?" And her father's response, quiet and defeated, "I don't know." Mallory got in her car and drove to a hotel. She booked a room for the night, lay down on the bed, and stared at the ceiling. She had won the house. She had won the argument. She had won the legal standoff. But winning a war against your own family doesn't feel like victory. It feels like the end of something you didn't know you were still hopping for. The next morning, her phone showed 47 missed calls. She didn't listen to a single voicemail. She drove back to the house one more time, not to enter, just to sit across the street and watch, to see if anything had changed, to see if the house looked different now that it belonged to her. It looked exactly the same, and that was the hardest part. She was about to start the engine when her phone buzzed with a text from an unknown number. She almost ignored it, but something made her open it. It was a photo, a photo of a document, a birth certificate. Her sister's birth certificate, the one that listed the father's name. The name was not her father's. Mallory stared at the screen. Her sister was not her full sibling. The golden child, the one who had received every resource, every luxury, every ounce of attention, was not biologically related to the man who had raised both of them. The favoritism wasn't just preference, it was protection. She read the text that came with the photo. "Your mother asked me to send this. She said you should know the truth before you decide what to do next." The sender's name was a man she didn't recognize, but the implications were clear. Her father, the man who had called her ungrateful, who had bought her sister a Mercedes while she took the bus, he wasn't just playing favorites. He was covering for the fact that his favored child wasn't his. Mallory put the phone down. She looked at the house one last time. The story she had believed her entire life was not the full story, and that changed everything. The birth certificate changed everything Mallory thought she knew. For 24 years, she had carried a story about why she was treated differently. The favorite child, the golden daughter, the one who deserved every advantage. She had built her entire understanding of the world around that framework, that she was simply less worthy of love. But the document on her phone screen revealed a different truth entirely. Her sister was not her father's biological child. And her father had known it from the beginning. She sat in her car for a long time, engine off, phone in her lap. The house across the street looked ordinary. A house with an overgrown lawn and a tricycle in the driveway. But inside those walls, a secret had been buried for over 2 decades. A secret that had shaped every decision, every resource allocation, every moment of cold indifference. She didn't call anyone. She didn't text back. She started the engine and drove to her Aunt Meredith's house. Meredith opened the door before Mallory could knock. Her face told her she already knew. "Come inside," she said quietly. "There's more you need to hear." They sat in the same small living room where Mallory had spent holidays watching her sister open expensive gifts while she received practical ones. The same room where she had learned to smile through the ache. "Your mother called me an hour ago," Meredith began. "She's been wanting to tell you for years. But your father, the man you call your father, he made her promise never to say a word." Mallory's throat was dry. "Tell me what?" Meredith took a breath. "Your mother had an affair, a brief one 25 years ago. When she became pregnant, she wasn't sure whose child it was. Your father, her husband, agreed to raise the baby as his own, but he never forgave her, and he never let her forget." The pieces started falling into place. The way her father treated her mother, not with warmth, but with a cold, transactional respect. The way he poured everything into Mallory's sister, as if proving something to the world and to himself. The way Mallory had been treated not as a daughter, but as a reminder of a betrayal he couldn't escape. "He punished you for her mistake," Meredith said softly. "You were the child he was sure was his, and he resented you for it, because you were proof of what he had to endure." Mallory's hands were shaking. She pressed them flat against her thighs. "So all of it," she said slowly, "the bus, the trash bag, the silence, none of it was about me." "It was never about you," Meredith said. "It was about a marriage that broke before you were born and never healed." The next day, Mallory went to see her mother alone. She found her in the backyard of the house, sitting on the old wooden bench where she used to drink her morning coffee. The bench was cracked now, weathered by years of Colorado winters. Her mother looked up. Her eyes were raw, exhausted. "You know," she said, "it wasn't a question." Mallory sat down beside her. "Why didn't you tell me?" "I was ashamed and scared. Your father made it clear that if I ever spoke about it, he would take everything. The house, the kids, the life we had built. I chose to protect your sister, and I chose to let you carry the weight." Mallory stared at the overgrown lawn. "You let him treat me like a burden because you were afraid of losing him." Her mother nodded slowly. "I thought if I kept the secret, I could keep the peace. But the peace was never real. It was just silence." "Why are you telling me now?" Her mother reached into her coat pocket and pulled out a folded envelope. She handed it to Mallory without meeting her eyes. Inside was a letter, handwritten. dated 3 months earlier. It was from a man Mallory had never met, her sister's biological father. He had written to her mother after learning about the pregnancy, offering to provide child support for the new baby. He had also offered something else, a DNA test if needed. "I never told your sister," her mother said. "She doesn't know, and I don't know if I should tell her." Mallory folded the letter carefully and handed it back. "That's not my decision to make." They sat in silence for a long moment. Then her mother said, "The house. What are you going to do?" Mallory had asked herself that question 100 times in the past week. She had imagined every scenario: evicting them, renting it back, selling it to a stranger, donating it to a charity. But sitting on that cracked bench, looking at the woman who had failed her in ways she was only beginning to understand, something shifted. "I'm going to offer you a deal," Mallory said. "I'll transfer the deed to your name. No strings attached, but you have to do 3 things." Her mother's eyes widened. "What?" "First, you tell your husband that the secret is out. He doesn't get to hold it over you anymore. Second, you go to therapy, real therapy. And third," she paused, "you tell my sister the truth when she's ready to hear it. Not now, but when she's strong enough." Her mother was crying. "I don't deserve this." "No, you don't," Mallory agreed. "But I'm not doing it for you. I'm doing it because I refuse to let this house cost me any more of my life. I already spent 18 years losing pieces of myself inside those walls. I won't spend another minute trying to take something from a place that only ever took from me." She stood up. "I'll have my attorney draw up the paperwork. You have 30 days to accept." She walked to the gate, then stopped. She turned back. "One more thing. I want the guest room." Her mother blinked. "What?" "The room you gave to my sister. I want it, not to live in, but to pack up. Every piece of furniture, every memory. I'm going to clear it out myself, and I'm going to take what I want. The rest goes to charity." Her mother nodded, speechless. Mallory walked out of the yard without looking back, but this time she didn't feel hollow. She felt light. The packing took 2 days. Mallory arrived with empty boxes and a steely resolve. She cleared the room methodically, sorting her childhood into 3 piles: keep, donate, trash. She found old notebooks filled with stories she had written in middle school, drawings she had hidden in a box under the bed, a letter she had written to herself at age 12 about what she wanted her life to become. She kept the letter. She threw away everything else tied to the room's second life: the nursery decorations, the maternity clothes her sister had left behind, the remnants of a life that had been built on a lie. On the second evening, her sister appeared in the doorway. The baby was asleep in a carrier strapped to her chest. She watched Mallory tape up the last box. "I know about the birth certificate," her sister said quietly. Mallory's hands stilled. "How?" "Mom told me this morning. She said you knew, and that you didn't tell anyone else." "I didn't," Mallory said. "That was her choice." Her sister stepped into the room. She looked smaller than Mallory remembered, less golden. For the first time, she looked like someone carrying her own weight. "I always thought I was better than you," her sister said, "because they treated me better. I thought it meant I was worth more. Now I don't know what it means." Mallory set down the tape. "It means you got the love you deserved, but I didn't, and neither of us had any control over that." Her sister's eyes filled with tears. "I'm sorry." "I know." They stood in the strip-down room, 2 women who had been played against each other for their entire lives. For a moment, the old resentment flared in Mallory's chest, the years of invisibility, the ache of being overlooked. But it faded as quickly as it came. She was done carrying it. "I'm not going to be your enemy," Mallory said, "but I'm not going to be your protector either. We're going to have to figure out what we are from here." Her sister nodded, wiping her eyes. "Okay." Mallory picked up the last box and carried it to her car. She didn't know what the future would look like. She didn't know if she would ever truly forgive her mother, or her father, or the system that had taught her to accept less. But she knew one thing for certain. She was no longer the invisible daughter. She was the one who had built a life from the scraps she was given. And she was the one who had walked back into the house that tried to break her and walked out with the keys in her hand. The deed transfer went through 6 weeks later. Mallory signed the papers in her attorney's office, sealed them in an envelope, and mailed them to her mother's address. She kept no copy for herself. She didn't need it. The house was a place. It was never a home. But the letter she had written to herself at age 12, the one about the life she wanted, that was something else. She framed it and hung it above her desk. It read, "One day, I will be the person I needed when I was young." She looked at it every morning before she started work, and she remembered that sometimes the bravest thing you can do is not to win. It's to walk away from a game that was never fair to begin with. The phone never stopped ringing, but she had stopped counting the missed calls. They didn't matter anymore. What mattered was the quiet in her own apartment, the career she had built with her own hands, and the knowledge that she would never again let anyone hand her a trash bag and tell her she deserved it. Mallory's story didn't end with a house. It ended with a choice to stop measuring her worth by a family that had never learned how to measure it fairly. She walked away from the deed, the debt, and the decades of silent punishment. She walked toward a life that belonged entirely to her. But the question her story leaves behind is one that lingers for anyone who has ever been the invisible child. What do we owe the people who taught us we were worth less than we are? The answer, Mallory discovered, is not forgiveness or revenge. It is clarity. The clarity to see the pattern for what it was, not a reflection of your value, but a reflection of their brokenness. And the courage to stop chasing a version of love that was never offered freely. The phone still rings sometimes. Her mother leaves voicemails, now softer ones, uncertain ones. She talks about the therapy sessions she started, about the guilt she carries, about wanting to understand. Mallory listens to some of them, not all. She is learning that healing doesn't mean letting everyone back in. It means choosing who gets to stay and on what terms. Her sister sends photos of the baby. She sends them without pressure, without demands. A small bridge being rebuilt, brick by brick, from a distance. Mallory looks at those photos and feels something she didn't expect, not resentment, but relief. The cycle of favoritism and secrecy doesn't have to pass to the next generation. It can stop here. The framed letter from 12-year-old Mallory still hangs above her desk. "One day, I will be the person I needed when I was young." She looks at it every morning. And every morning, she realizes a little more that she already is that person. Not because she bought a house or won an argument, because she stopped waiting for permission to matter. So here is the question that stays with you after this story settles. Who are you still waiting to notice you? And what would it cost you to stop waiting and start living like you already matter? Because the people who were supposed to see you may never open their eyes, but that doesn't mean your light has to go out. If this story hit close to home, if it made you think of a room you were asked to leave, or a love that was measured unevenly, take a moment to share your own experience in the comments. Because sometimes the most powerful thing we can do is let someone else know they are not alone in the silence. Subscribe and follow for more stories that remind you why you matter. And remember, the best revenge isn't owning the house, it's owning your life.